Hello and welcome back to Amid the Chaos. Today I'm going to give you a beginner's guide so that you can start wargaming. We'll include information on setting up the table, deciding which period to play, which rules to use, and much more. We'll have a conversation about why I love historical wargaming and why it's been such a big part of my life for the past 50 plus years. By the end of this video, if you watch it all the way through to the end, you will be ready to start wargaming. To start, I should probably give you some background. I first got into wargaming way back in 1973 when I went to university in England. There was a professor who invited a few of us to try what he called chess with 1,000 pieces. We went to his house, saw this huge tabletop battlefield with painted miniatures, and I was hooked. We played for hours that first evening. After that, it was mostly ancient battles with some Napoleonics mixed in. And that was the start of my lifelong hobby. I started by collecting 15mm Persians, mainly because of the famous Immortals, an elite 10,000 man unit that was always kept at full strength. And the idea of chariots with swords attached to wheels just appealed to my imagination. From there, I moved on through history, taking British armies of any period and the enemy they fought against. British armies through the 19th century and eventually World War II. Even today, most of my collection is 15mm, with a few 28mm figures that I use when I play Saga, a skirmish level game. So what keeps me coming back to historical games? Well, there are three main things that I absolutely love about historical wargaming. The first is building the battlefield, designing terrain, recreating historical battlefields on the tabletop, and thinking about how the geography shaped the tactics employed in that battle. The second is researching the history, learning how the armies were organized, how they fought, what they looked like, the details of their uniforms, and paint schemes for vehicles. The third, and probably the most important, is the camaraderie. Sitting down with friends, rolling dice, telling stories together. Those are the moments that make the hobby special. It's part creative, part social, and part a living history lesson. So how do you get started with historical gaming? Well, historical wargaming can feel overwhelming at first. So here's how I would suggest you start. Find a local group. Check Facebook, local game stores, or the Historical Miniatures Gaming Society chapter in your area. Historical players are almost always happy to teach new folks the game they're playing. The second way is to find and attend a local convention. Even small conventions these days often have historical games running all weekend, and it's a great way to try different periods without buying into an army first. Another main consideration when starting wargaming is what to do if you do not want to play in a group, or if there is no local group to be found. Well, you can play solo. Solo wargaming is where you run both armies. This can be very satisfying, and I play solo games quite a lot when my local group has a lull because of vacations or other matters, and we just can't get together. The third thing is to decide on your favourite era. Do you want to play Ancients, Napoleon's Great Battles, World War II? Each period has its own flavour, and knowing what excites you will guide your collection of miniatures. But historical wargaming spans thousands of years, from Sumerians and Egyptians to modern day conflicts. Old wargame grognards like me talk of different periods we play like everyone knows what we mean. So here is a quick breakdown of the periods. Ancients runs from 3000 BC to about 500 AD. Think Romans, Greeks, Persians. The Dark Ages and medieval period runs from 500 AD to 1500 AD. And here you'll find Vikings, Crusaders, Knights and Castles. The Renaissance pike and shot period runs from 1500 AD to about 1700 AD, which is where gunpowder meets pike. The Napoleonic period from 1790 to 1815 AD, massed battles, colourful uniforms, everything you need. 19th century and colonial wars from 1815 to 1900, where European armies fight for colonisation of Africa. And then the modern period, which is the two world wars, trench warfare, tanks, and combined armed battles. The next thing is to look into the rule sets. Different games represent different scales and styles. Some are big battles, others are skirmishes. I'll list some of my favourites later in the video. The type of game you want to play is also very important. There are various levels you can play, and this isn't a complicated thing. It just means that the number of your painted models on the tabletop represent anything from a single person up to 250 men or more. The skirmish games, like Saga, represent small bands of men fighting each other in local raids. So each figure represents one man. In my Amid the Chaos rules, each man represents between 50 and 60 men. In the Warlord Games Napoleonic rules, each model represents around 20 to 25 men. This variation also determines the look of the game. A scale of 1 to 50 means you can refight much larger historical battles on a reasonably sized playing table. Playing much larger battles also seems to be driving the hobby to smaller scaled figures. Each model is available in different scales. 6mm to 28mm are currently the most popular. There is a general move away from 15mm to 10mm or even 6mm in order to allow much bigger battles to be played on the tabletop. So while we're talking scale, 15mm, 10mm, etc., that is the size of the model. The commonly accepted practice is to measure from the top of the base the model is standing on to the model's eyes. This measurement is then the scale you are playing. Not all manufacturers do this, so if you're buying models from multiple manufacturers, you need to be aware of this. Not all of your models need to be exactly the same height, however. Whoever saw a battalion of British Napoleonic infantry where everyone was exactly the same height? However, this difference in size between the manufacturers is something to bear in mind. When selecting a period, I personally view the period history that I'm wanting to play or a specific battle I want to reproduce. I prefer games to have a narrative. What has happened before this battle and what might happen afterwards. Because I like to play narrative-driven games, I'm not in favour of games with point systems that lead to supposedly balanced sides where both players have the same chance of winning. I think these systems detract from the creativity and fun of the battles. For example, a game about a glorious last stand. Can a small force of Spartans hold out against the Persians given the right defensive battlefield setup? Can the French rearguard stop the Russians from crossing a river and falling onto Napoleon's retreating army in 1812? These are the games where you redefine what winning is. In both these cases, the victory conditions for the much smaller force may be just preventing the other side from having units leave their side of the table edge for a certain number of turns, thus allowing the rest of their army to reorganise and set up for battle in more favourable terrain. It's the narrative around the battle that makes the games interesting, not a point system that ensures a fair and even game. Whoever heard of a battlefield commander insisting on only fighting if both sides had an equal chance of winning? Not Napoleon Bonaparte for sure. So you can set up games where each player has a personal objective. They keep that secret from the other players. Some people's objective could be to switch sides, or some players have to amass glory by killing more of the opposition than the other players on their side. This last one is great when playing Zulus against British colonial infantry, where each Zulu commander is fighting for the glory of their clan. These are some of the things to think about when first getting into historical gaming. So having chosen a period or a battle, how about the rules to play the game with? Here, in my opinion, are some of the best rules for each period. Of course, I have to start with the rules that I published amid the chaos, which is a set of core rules that apply to all ages between 3000 BC and 1900 AD. It can be used playing a mat divided into hexes for ease of movement and measuring ranges, or there is a variant of those rules that allows you to play just on any other mat, any other open surface. These core rules are then used with supplements for each period. Other rule sets deal with a specific period. I'll divide them up into the periods that we discussed earlier. For the ancient period, there are DBA, which is a fast play mass battle where you have 12 element armies. The larger scaled version of DBA is called DBM. There's Hail Caesar from Wargames, a very popular rule set which allows big battles with a cinematic feel, flexible for all ancient armies. Sword Point by Gripping Beast has large battles with detailed combat resolution, and Saga, which I personally like to play, has skirmish level rules for the classical era, and they have various supplements for the different periods, including their Dark Ages version. In that same period, there's Lion Rampant from Osprey, where they use small warbands and raiding focused battles, and DBA and Hail Caesar both have rules which extend into this period. Following on from that is the medieval period, 1066 to 1500. Saga, again with their Age of Crusades supplement, focused on the Crusader and medieval factions, and Hail Caesar for mass medieval battles like Agincourt or Bannockburn. There's also a rule set called Nevermind the Billhooks, which is a fast play War of the Roses and 100 Years War rule set. Following on from that, the Renaissance period, pike and shot again from Warlord Games for mass battles of the 30 Years War and the English Civil War. The Lace Wars, or early modern from 1700 to 1790 AD, again has black powder from Warlord Games. Beneath the Lily Banners, which is focused on the late 17th to early 18th century, and Honours of War from Osprey, which covers the 7 Years' War with medium-scale battles. Now, the Napoleonic period from 1790 to 1815 is probably the most popular period for wargaming, and it has many sets of wargames rules, including black powder. From a company I love called Two Fat Lardies, there is Sharp Practice, which is skirmish level Napoleonic action. And then there's the recently published Eagles to Glory Grand Tactical Level Battle. For the 19th century, 1815 to 1900 AD, again, black powder works well for the Crimean, American Civil War, and any of the colonial conflicts. We have Fire and Fury, which is a popular for American Civil War, and Men Who Would Be Kings, another Osprey rule set for colonial skirmishes. Then in the 1900 to 1945 era with the World Wars and the early 20th century, we have Bolt Action, the most popular World War II platoon level game currently available. There's Chain of Command from Two Fat Lardies, which is skirmish emphasizing realism and command friction. And then there's Flames of War from Battlefront, which is a company level World War II battles, focused mainly on 15mm. And then Battle Group from Plastic Soldier Company, which is company level World War II battles. After the Second World War up to the present period, you'll find Battlefront has a rule set called Team Yankee, which is based on a Cold War gone hot, company level, compatible with Flames of War. And then from Plastic Soldier Company, there's Battle Group North Ag and Battle Group Centag, which is 1980s NATO versus Warsaw Pact. The last thing I want to touch on is the playing surface. This does not have to be anything extravagant. I started with a piece of felt fabric from my local fabric store, a 4 foot by 6 foot piece of green cloth that today would cost less than $15. Buy some blue cloth for rivers, brown for roads and fields, and you have a good start. For hills, you can put folded towels or tea towels under the cloth. This gives a good look and is relatively inexpensive. Other terrain features like houses, bunkers, etc. can be found online, or there is a tremendous amount of 3D resources available now where you can print your own or have someone else that has a 3D printer print the pieces for you. Historical wargaming is a hobby that combines history, creativity and friendship. Whether you're recreating Waterloo or staging a Viking raid, it's about telling stories and bringing the past to life on your tabletop. If you're curious, check out the links below for Amid the Chaos rules. Join our Facebook group and of course subscribe to this channel for more tips, battle reports and deep dives into the hobby. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you found it informative. Please don't forget to hit like, leave a comment and subscribe for more videos about the Amid the Chaos rule set. So I will see you in the next one, and in the meantime, take care.